At the beginning of our story, we find Chae Young-ju, a tough and resilient woman, speeding through the quiet streets of Busan on a motorcycle. Her black tactical gear clings to her form as she races to a warehouse where two wholesalers are trying to sneak away with a truckload of beer. These wholesalers, long overdue on their payments to Jisang Liquor, think they can escape without consequences. Little do they know, they are already being watched. As the truck drives off into the night, Young-ju hits a button on her motorcycle, locking the gates of the warehouse behind them. She circles back, swiftly catching up to the culprits and trapping them inside the factory. The wholesalers, realizing they've been caught, plead for mercy, but Young-ju isn't interested in excuses. She holds her ground and demands they pay up for the long overdue debts. After a tense standoff, they reluctantly agree, swearing they'll settle their accounts. It's a small victory, but for Young-ju, it's another successful debt recovery. Later at night, Young-ju's staff celebrates, praising her legendary efforts. She had built the Supreme beer brand from scratch, making it the second best-selling beer in Busan. The senior employees reminisce about how she personally handed out flyers, hustling to form partnerships to get the beer's name out there. Her perseverance made Supreme beer a household name in the region. To maintain the business, she had to extend credit to some wholesalers. However, whenever they defaulted or fled, she donned her black gear, chased them down, and brought the money back, giving her team a sense of security. Young-ju's fierce reputation, earned through years of hard work and determination, has made her the backbone of Supreme Beer's success. She is more than just a saleswoman, she's a force to be reckoned with, admired by her team, and feared by those who owe money. But the journey isn't all smooth sailing. As her team celebrates, a new challenge looms. At Jisang Liquor headquarters, the chairman introduces a new beer, in my name, to his board members. The beer's refreshing taste leaves everyone enchanted, with some describing it as a taste of nature itself. The chairman declares that the company must either acquire the brewery producing it or secure a partnership with its enigmatic brewmaster, Yoon Min-ju. He orders his planning and marketing teams to make it happen at all costs. Yoon Min-ju, the creator of In My Name, lives a quiet life in a small-town brewery. Unlike the corporate world of Jisang Liquor, Min-ju is a quiet, reclusive man who finds solace in the art of brewing. His brewery produces a unique beer that has captured the industry's attention. Min-ju spends his days brewing and working with a small team of employees who are as quirky as they are devoted to their craft. Min-ju's life isn't without its challenges, though. His father, a retired two-star general who believes in traditional masculinity, constantly criticizes him. Min-ju, however, is different. He is an empath, deeply sensitive to the emotions of others, a trait that has caused tension with his father, who finds his son's sensitivity a weakness. The brewing world is his refuge, a place where he can escape his family's expectations and live in peace, at least for a little while. One day, a young man named Chan Hwai stumbles into Min-ju's brewery after tasting In My Name beer at a local pub. Chan Hwai is so taken by the beer that he offers to work for the brewery in exchange for a steady supply of the brew. Sensing Chan Hwai's genuine admiration, Yoon Min-ju agrees, asking for his phone number in case of future needs. Chan Hwai cheekily requests 2 bottles of beer as an advance, which he later delivers to none other than Young-ju. Later, Young-ju tastes In My Name beer for the first time and is immediately impressed by its quality. She believes Jisang Liquor should also produce a beer like this. Meanwhile, Min-ju is unaware that his beer has already gained recognition from the industry, and the attention is only just beginning to grow. Despite the success of In My Name, Min-ju remains humble, dedicated to his craft, and unaware of the storm that is about to change both his life and Young-ju's. That evening, after work, Min-ju receives a call from his little brother Min-hoo, inviting him to his birthday party. Min-ju reluctantly agrees, knowing that his father will be there, and tensions will inevitably rise. His father is critical of everything Min-ju does, and the family gatherings are rarely peaceful. At his brother's birthday party, Min-ju confronts his father's relentless criticism. The ex-general is determined to push his younger son toward a career that fulfills his unachieved dreams. And frustrated, Min-ju stands his ground, defending his sensitivity and reminding his father that everyone has a right to be different. After the argument, Min-ju takes his younger brother to an amusement park to cheer him up. While there, they run into Chae Young-ju, who has also arrived at the park to release some pent-up frustration. Young-ju has just received the news that Jisang Liquor plans to close the Busan branch as part of a deal to acquire In My Name brewery. Feeling both betrayed and determined, she decides to take matters into her own hands. At the park, Min-ju's younger brother is fixated on a giant teddy bear at a shooting game, but Min-ju struggles to shoot enough points to win it. That's when Young-ju, spotting his trouble, steps in. With a steady hand and a calm expression, she takes control of the game and quickly earns the necessary points to win the teddy bear. Min-ju watches in awe as she channels all her frustration into hitting the targets, her sharp focus reflecting the inner turmoil she's feeling about her job and the closure of her branch. Despite her usual stoic demeanor, Young-ju's emotions begin to show. Min-ju, who can sense others' feelings, immediately notices the sadness in her eyes and asks her, "Are you okay?" Young-ju's response is flat, "I'm fine," but Min-ju isn't convinced. He sees through her tough exterior and understands that she's struggling with something much bigger than a shooting game. It's a strange moment for him because he usually doesn't care about other people's feelings, yet here he is, concerned for someone he barely knows. Later, Yongju heads back home, where her grandmother immediately senses something is off. Yongju, though, reassures her, telling her not to worry. She's determined to find a way to save the Busan branch, even if it means taking on the challenge of convincing Minju to collaborate with Jisang Liquor. The next day, she learns that the marketing team has given her a chance to do just that. If she can convince Minju, the Busan branch might have a future. She agrees to take on the challenge, feeling both a sense of hope and fear. With this new goal in mind, Yongju moves to Seoul with her grandmother. The marketing team at headquarters is busy preparing, but things aren't going smoothly. Minju has made it clear that he doesn't want anything to do with Jisang, and the team is struggling to figure out how to convince him. Despite this, Yongju stays determined and heads to Minju's village, hoping to speak with him directly and convince him of the potential benefits of the collaboration. However, she is not the first to arrive. Bang Ah-Riam, the ace manager from the planning team, is already there, waiting for her. Bang Ah-Riam mistakes a person for Minju, which leads to some awkward moments, but she quickly realizes her mistake. When she meets Minju, he is kind but firm in his decision to refuse the partnership with Supreme Beer. He can tell that Bang Ah-Riam is under pressure from her superiors, so he advises her to pass the message along without forcing her to do something she doesn't want to. This is a clear sign that Minju doesn't want to get involved in any business drama, and he's not easily swayed by corporate pressures. Meanwhile, Chae Yongju is still determined to meet Minju. She goes to the village head and asks for his help in arranging a meeting with Minju. The village head uses a loudspeaker to announce a meeting, but Minju is nowhere to be found. When he finally arrives, he is surprised to see Yongju again, but he refuses to listen to her proposal. Instead, he tries to walk away, but Yongju doesn't give up. She chases after him barefoot, desperately trying to explain the terms of the collaboration. Minju, feeling overwhelmed by her urgency, gives in slightly and offers her slippers, telling her that her desperation is making it harder for him to focus on the situation. Minju, who usually keeps his emotions in check, is now struggling with the intensity of Yongju's feelings. Her determination, her drive, her worries, they all affect him in ways he can't explain. He wants to leave, but he can't help but feel a strange connection to her. It's a side of him he's not used to showing, and it makes him uncomfortable. But before he can fully distance himself, Yongju chases him down once again, asking for his help. Minju, irritated, says he doesn't want to meet her anymore. "I'm blocking you," he says, drawing an imaginary line in the air between them. As Minju tries to distance himself from her, he retreats to his meditation room, hoping to regain his sense of calm. But he finds it harder than ever to separate his emotions from those of others. Just as he begins to meditate, he notices smoke coming from his room. His two elderly employees rush in, worried about a potential fire. However, they soon realize that the smoke is coming from scented candles inside his room. Yongju, having overheard their panic, decides to act. She rappels down from the building, using a rope to reach Minju's window. When she arrives, she is relieved to find that there's no fire, just candles. But the sight of her standing at his window leaves Minju speechless. Yongju, still feeling the weight of her mission, uses this moment to ask Minju once again to collaborate with Jisang. She tells him that by working together, they can create a beer that stays true to his original vision, while also helping Supreme Beer become a dominant brand. Minju, who has been fighting his growing feelings for her, is unable to respond. Instead, he pushes back, telling her that he needs space and can't be affected by her emotions anymore. He even suggests that she should go to the hospital for the injury she sustained during her scuffle with the wholesaler, hoping that the suggestion will distance them further. Frustrated but not defeated, Yongju continues her mission to win Minju over. She knows that if she gives up now, the Busan branch will be shut down, and she'll lose everything she's worked for. She's not one to give up easily. Later, while visiting the village, Yongju learns from the village head that the area is short-handed, especially when it comes to harvesting hops for brewing. Yongju sees this as her opportunity to prove herself, so she volunteers to help with the work, hoping that by doing so, she'll get closer to Minju and gain his trust. Minju, who is usually unbothered by the village's daily operations, is annoyed when he hears that Yongju has been allowed into the village. He orders the village head to stop her from entering, but Yongju uses her wit and determination to overcome the obstacle. She offers the village head some health supplements as a token of goodwill, and he reluctantly agrees to let her pass. This marks the first victory for Yongju, but Minju isn't far behind. He learns about the breach and is unimpressed with the village head's decision to allow Yongju through. However, he remains calm and continues with his usual routine, knowing that his second line of defense, the elderly ladies, will handle the situation. But when Minju sees one of the elderly women on a ladder, picking fruit from a tree, he immediately becomes concerned. He rushes to warn her, but is confused when he notices that the elderly woman is not who he thought she was. The real surprise comes when Yongju jumps down from the ladder, ready to face him head-on. Minju is stunned. He can't believe that this woman has managed to outsmart him once again. Minju, who had been keeping a close eye on Yongju's hard work in the field, couldn't help but be impressed. She was skilled, and her determination shone through. Older women, noticing his hesitation, urged him to let her continue working, and Minju finally gave in. He decided to let Yongju join as a part-time worker, but he wasn't sure whether her dedication was enough to win him over. Back in Seoul, Chan Hy was busy with his toast truck when he unexpectedly ran into Ah Riem. She was immediately starstruck by him and found herself drawn to his charm. Chan Hy made her a sandwich, and though Ah Riem was usually focused on climbing the social ladder, she couldn't deny how much she liked the simple toast. Meanwhile, Minju was still focused on his brewery and its future, but he couldn't ignore the changes happening around him, especially with Yongju working so closely with him. At lunch, the two elderly ladies who had been helping him took Yongju to a small shed, which was surprisingly fully furnished like a little home. Minju had organized this for them, and it left Yongju somewhat impressed. As she ate, she realized that Minju had put a lot of thought into these small details. She felt a little more connected to him, even if he was still distant and aloof. When the lunch break was over, Minju and Yongju ended up talking as she worked. Minju, who had noticed her vulnerability, saw something that others couldn't. He handed her coffee and a sweet bun to make her feel more comfortable, even tying her hair when it became a bit messy. As the two elderly women entered and began teasing them, Minju quickly shifted his tone, dismissing Yongju with a firm order to leave. It was clear that he wasn't ready to let her in completely. Yongju, however, wasn't ready to give up. She went to Yulhan pub, where she drank an unbelievable amount of narrow beer minus 10 liters, to be exact. The village chief, concerned about her drunken state, quickly called Minju. By the time he arrived, Yongju was fast asleep in the pub, still standing, clearly exhausted. Minju, surprised by her sheer determination and the toll it was taking on her, decided to take her back to the brewery. The next morning, Minju found himself still thinking about Yongju. She had somehow managed to push past every barrier he had set up, making him question everything he thought he knew about himself. As the villagers prepared for the upcoming beer festival, Minju focused on his work, but his mind kept drifting back to her. It was as if her persistence had started to break through his hardened exterior. Later, the two elderly ladies had another plan to get them together. They tricked Yongju into going up the mountain to collect ragwort. Once she was there, they told Minju she was lost. They used her situation to manipulate Minju into going after her, hoping that the rescue mission would bring them closer. Minju, initially reluctant, rushed off to find her, feeling a mixture of frustration and worry. It was getting dark and he knew he had to find her before it became too dangerous. When Minju finally reached the mountain, he found Yongju sitting near a hut, seemingly calm. Her phone had died, so she had decided to spend the night there. She asked him why he hated her, but Minju quickly responded that he didn't hate her. Instead, he explained that seeing her reminded him of his own struggles growing up. His father had always wanted him to be strong and manly, traits that Minju's sensitive nature couldn't fulfill. The flashbacks to his childhood made him reflect on how difficult it was for him to accept his true self. Yongju, listening to his story, reached out and held his hand. She understood how hard it must have been for him. Minju, who had always felt misunderstood, found comfort in her presence. He told her a story 6 years ago when someone had saved his life. The only advice they gave him was to protect himself above all. It was a lesson he had tried to live by ever since, and it was why he had become so closed off. Yongju, sensing his pain, gently told him that not everyone had the luxury to block out their emotions like he did. She expressed her sympathy and her own struggles with emotional suppression. As the night wore on, Minju watched her slowly fall asleep, her head resting on his shoulder. In that moment, something shifted inside him. It wasn't love yet, but it was the beginning of something more. When they woke up the next morning, Minju was surprised to find that the village was eerily quiet. It felt deserted. They soon learned that Bang Ah Rum had been working behind the scenes to turn the villagers against Yongju. She had convinced them that if Minju didn't agree to a collaboration with Jisang Liquor, they would lose everything. The villagers, misled by Ah Riam's words, surrounded Yongju and accused her of trying to take Minju away to Seoul. Minju, who had been watching from a distance, felt a surge of protectiveness. He stepped forward, placing himself between Yongju and the angry villagers. She has done nothing wrong, he said firmly. It was a bold move that shocked everyone, including Yongju. For the first time, Minju stood up for her. In doing so, he made it clear that he was no longer willing to just watch from the sidelines. He was ready to fight for what he believed in. After the confrontation, Minju's frustration shows. As he wipes the salt off Yongju's face, he tells her to come with him. He leads her back to his place, offering her a chance to clean up and rest while he checks in with his cat. It's clear that even though Minju tries to keep a tough exterior, he still cares deeply about the people around him, especially the villagers who had supported him. As Yongju showers, she reflects on the village's role in Minju's life. She understands why he can't simply walk away from them. They were the ones who helped him build his business from scratch. The memory of those early days in Baegak-ri flashes back to Minju's mind. When he first arrived in the village 4 years ago, he was alone, unsociable, and quiet. But the villagers contacted him, supporting his idea to plant beer trees and start brewing beer. It was their collective effort that made In My Name beer a success, and Minju had always prioritized their well-being. As he reflects on his past, he feels a bond with the villagers that cannot be easily broken. Back in the present, Minju is still grappling with the tension surrounding the festival. Yongju is determined to help, even as the situation becomes more complicated. She discusses her concerns with Riem, telling her that if Narrow Beer merges with Jisang, the villagers will lose ownership of the beer they've worked so hard to build. Furthermore, they might be displaced from their jobs if Jisang takes over. Yongju knows that the villagers' happiness and the future of their beer are at stake, and she's not willing to let anyone, including Minju, ignore that. The day of the beer festival arrives, and chaos quickly ensues. The village head mistakenly orders beer for the wrong date, leaving the festival without enough stock. Minju, always the problem solver, decides to bring out what little beer remains from his brewery. Both Riem and Chan Hai step in to help him. Together they attempt to save the event. Meanwhile, Yongju, thinking on her feet, calls her trusted colleague Biam to organize the delivery of more beer. But as luck would have it, a car accident blocks the road, and the beer shipment is delayed. In the face of adversity, Yongju doesn't lose hope. She contacts her client, a wholesaler with whom she has a good relationship. Thanks to her previous efforts and connections, the wholesaler agrees to send more beer. With the new shipment on its way, Yongju, along with Biam, races back to the village to ensure everything is in place for the festival. But her mind is still focused on Minju's contract. She's determined to secure a partnership with him, but not at the cost of forcing him into it. While traveling, Riem and Chanachui unknowingly reveal some crucial information. Riem warns Minju to reconsider working with Yongju, questioning whether she's truly trustworthy. In response, Yongju overhears their conversation and decides to set the record straight. She admits that yes, the Busan branch's closure is part of why she's seeking the deal with Minju, but she clarifies that she would never exploit him or the villagers for her personal gain. Her intention has always been to help the people she's grown to care about. Yongju arrives at the festival with the beer she promised, and the crowd cheers as the event begins to take shape. Minju, still unsure about his feelings, makes a bold decision. He announces that he will sign the contract with Yongju, no longer doubting her intentions. This statement surprises everyone, especially Riem, who watches in disappointment as her plans fall apart. But the festival continues, and Minju takes a moment to reflect on how much he's changed since meeting Yongju. Later that evening, as the festival wraps up, Minju is caught up in his thoughts. He offers to pay Yongju for her help with the beer. As they talk, Minju begins to compare beer to people, musing about how harsher society's standards are when judging people. He's finally beginning to see that Yongju isn't just a business partner, she's someone who understands him in ways that others don't. The next day, as Minju heads to Seoul to finalize the contract, his nerves begin to get the best of him. He's unsure about his decision, and the weight of the contract feels heavy. But just as he's about to doubt himself, Yongju sends him a video from the festival, showing the delighted customers praising his beer. The words of encouragement calm him, and he moves forward with renewed confidence. At the Jisang liquor office, Minju meets executives to sign the contract. Yongju has already formed a team to work alongside him, including Riem, Biam, and her colleague Ra-Oh. The team celebrates their success, but the mood shifts when Ra-Oh challenges Minju to a taste test. Minju, who has always prided himself on his ability to taste and judge beers, accepts the challenge and wins, impressing everyone with his keen senses. Later, the group goes out for a celebratory dinner. As they enjoy their meal, Minju begins to notice that Biam's feelings for Yongju are more than just professional. His heart races as he observes their interactions, and for a moment, Minju wonders if his emotions are connected to Biam's affection for Yongju or his own. The evening takes an unexpected turn when rain starts to pour. As Yongju runs toward him to take shelter, Minju's heart flutters. He realizes that, despite his best efforts to ignore his emotions, he might be falling for the woman who has challenged everything he thought he knew about himself. The next day, Minju, still puzzled by his emotions, watches as Yongju and Biam head out for lunch. His mind races, sensing something between them. He gets flustered again when he realizes that Biam doesn't even recognize his feelings for Yongju. Minju, feeling an overwhelming sense of discomfort, decides to approach Biam. He gently nudges him, trying to get him to realize that what he's feeling isn't just admiration, but something more. Biam laughs it off, dismissing Minju's words as nothing more than a joke. But Minju can't shake the unease stirring inside him. The team, now working together on their beer project, meets for a product development meeting. During the discussion, Yongju asks Ra-Oh to book the accommodation for their upcoming workshop. However, Ra-Oh grumbles about the responsibility, grumbling that it's unfair to place it solely on him because he's the youngest. Minju picks up on Yongju's frustration, noticing that she's hiding her annoyance for his sake. He speaks up, telling her to stop holding back her emotions for him. He encourages her to speak her mind, but she brushes it off, insisting they focus on the business. The moment quickly passes, but Minju can't help feeling disappointed when Biam easily makes Yongju laugh. Seeing her light up at Biam's words stirs something deep within him. The two women in the group, Suk-ja and Young-ja, notice Minju's disappointment. They decide to take matters into their own hands and secretly arrange a plan to bring Young-ju back to the village pub, hoping to get Minju and Young-ju alone together for a moment of reflection. Meanwhile, Chan Hy stumbles upon a surprising discovery. He sees Ah Ryum working as a cashier at a store, only to learn that she actually owns the business. She had been covering for one of her employees, and Chan Hy, ever the observant one, watches her work with a sense of respect. At the same time, back at the pub, Young-ju opens up about her tough childhood. She shares stories about growing up without her parents and how she had to fight her way through life. She was always told she was too tough, too independent, and it shaped the way she approached the world. As they sit together and chat, Minju realizes how much he's grown to appreciate Young-ju's strength. He begins to reflect on his feelings for her. For the first time, he allows himself to smile, a true, unguarded smile. He's starting to see her in a new light. At that moment, something clicks. He's not just impressed by her strength or her work ethic, he's beginning to care for her in a way that feels completely different from anything he's felt before. The next morning, Minju tries to convince himself that the feelings he's been experiencing are just a result of his ability to sense others' emotions. He tells himself that it's Byum's feelings, not his own, causing the fluttering in his chest. But even as he tries to rationalize, it's clear that he's struggling with the truth. The team heads to the beach for their next agenda item, and the day takes an unexpected turn. As they walk along the shore, cries for help interrupt their conversation. Without hesitation, Young-ju and Chan Hy rush into the water to save a woman who is drowning. The others, including Minju, watch in awe as they leap into action with ease. They were quick, skilled, and fearless traits that Minju couldn't help but admire. When they rescue the woman, Minju is taken aback by their response. As he watches Young-ju and Chan Hy act on instinct, he's reminded of the years they must have spent training. He admires their poise and their sense of purpose. When they return to shore, Minju can't help but feel that there's something even deeper at play here. His admiration for Young-ju is growing, and it's becoming more than just respect for her abilities. Later, at a nearby brewery, Minju finds himself drawn to Young-ju's confidence once again. He watches her take charge, guiding the team through the tour. She's not only skilled in beer brewing, but she's also calm, collected, and in control. Just as he's about to snap a photo of her, capturing her poise, she calls him over, interrupting his train of thought. Minju feels a wave of unease, unsure of what to make of his growing attraction. Still, he can't help but admire her more with each passing moment. After the brewery tour, things take an unexpected turn when Young-ju sees a colleague from Busan being mistreated by a competitor. Without hesitation, she steps in to confront the rival company. As the situation escalates, Young-ju finds herself face to face with a man holding a beer bottle as a weapon. In no time, she grabs the bottle and stands her ground, ready to protect herself. Minju watches, awestruck as she takes control of the situation. The rival's manager rushes over to apologize, but Young-ju handles the situation with grace, ending the confrontation peacefully. Despite the tense situation, Minju can't help but admire Young-ju's courage and composure. Afterward, they return to the Busan branch and Young-ju checks on the state of things. She's surprised to find that the branch isn't performing as well as it used to. The staff, however, assure her they're holding on and waiting for her return. Young-ju, ever the fighter, promises them that she'll do everything she can to save the branch. She's determined, and Minju can see that. As the day comes to a close, Minju feels his heart racing once again. He's concerned for Young-ju after seeing her hand injured during the confrontation. Without thinking, he applies medicine to her hand, advising her not to get hurt in the future. Young-ju, completely unaware of his growing feelings for her, asks why he cares so much. Minju, flustered, quickly changes the subject, but the moment lingers in the air. Young-ju squeezes his fingers, and Minju feels his heart skip a beat. It's clear to him now that his feelings for her are no longer a passing emotion. Every interaction, every moment shared with her, makes his heart race. As he watches her smile, Minju can no longer deny the truth he's falling for her. That evening, as the team wraps up the research for the new beer, Minju feels an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. He's not ready to part ways with Young-ju just yet, and when he checks to see if she's ready to leave, he finds himself hoping for just a little more time together. He heads back to his place and starts developing the photos he took on their trip, including one of Young-ju. For the first time, he's photographed a person, and as he hangs the photo in a prominent place, a small smile plays on his lips. Meanwhile, the villagers, in Minju's absence, bring him some good news. Many distributors have placed orders for their beer, making it more popular than ever. The village is growing, and soon, they might become a large-scale business. But Minju worries that they might not be able to meet the orders on time. Fortunately, Supreme Beer agrees to help them out, offering to adjust their schedule so it doesn't interfere with their own beer production. The village head is still worried, thinking Supreme Beer might not be as cooperative as they seem. Minju reassures him, trusting in Youngju's character and her ability to deliver on promises. But as they prepare to launch, problems arise. Supreme Beer, pressured by their competitors, decides to push up the development timeline for the new beer from 6 months to 3. Youngju is frustrated by the sudden change. She had promised Minju to stick to the 6-month schedule, but now she's being forced to rush. The chairman insists on the new timeline, and the marketing team leader pushes her even harder, claiming it's the only way to meet the company's demands. As the tension rises, Bangarium realizes her mistake in leaking the information about the new beer's timeline. The planning team had originally agreed to a 6-month timeline, but now, with everything on the line, the pressure mounts. Chae Youngju tries to stand her ground, arguing that rushing the project would undermine the quality of the beer and break Yun Minju's trust. However, her concerns fall on deaf ears. The marketing team leader, determined to make the deal work, pushes forward, threatening to close the Busan branch if they don't comply. When villagers learn of the sudden change, they are furious. They feel betrayed by Youngju and demand an explanation. Minju, realizing what's happening, tries to contact her, but she doesn't pick up. Her silence only fuels the villagers' anger, and they accuse her of being unable to face them. Ju, overwhelmed by the situation, hurries to explain herself to Minju. As she arrives, she is greeted by a worried Minju, who quickly ushers her into his car to get away from the villagers. The two sit in silence, but it's clear that both are under immense pressure. Minju works late into the night at the brewery, trying to handle as much of the work as possible so that Youngju doesn't have to bear the full weight of the situation. At home, Youngju tries to drink away her stress. It's clear she's feeling guilty and frustrated. She's torn between following her boss's orders and keeping her promise to Minju. She realizes that the leak about the new product came from someone within her team. Her suspicions quickly fall on Bangarium, and she confronts her the next day. The planning team leader had been using Bangarium to get information, and Youngju is furious. She doesn't hold back and tells the planning team leader that from now on, if he wants information, he'll have to go through her directly. Bangarium apologizes, but Youngju understands that she was just trying to fit into the team. The two of them discuss the situation, and Youngju encourages Bangarium to make amends for her mistakes. She's willing to give her a second chance, but she also makes it clear that trust and promises matter. The next day, Youngju leads her team to Yun Minju's brewery to help produce the beer ordered by the distributors. The team works tirelessly, and as they move forward, Minju watches from the sidelines, impressed by Youngju's leadership and organizational skills. The beer production process is running smoothly, and the mood is light as everyone works together. The two elderly ladies prepare a hearty dinner as a reward for the team, and the atmosphere is cheerful. But amidst the celebration, Bangarium quietly slips away, feeling conflicted about her place in the team. Chan Hy notices and follows her outside to comfort her. Bangarium admits that she struggled with her role on the team. She's always used her looks to get by, but meeting someone like Youngju, who values hard work and integrity over appearance, has left her feeling inadequate. Chan Hy reassures her, telling her that her beauty is not the issue. It's her heart that makes her a good person. He encourages her to embrace who she is, without feeling pressured to change. Meanwhile, Yun Minju takes Youngju upstairs to his house, showing her his meditation room. She's amazed by the photographs he's taken, and when she spots one of herself, she's touched. She hadn't realized he had taken a photo of her, and she's flustered by the gesture. Minju, noticing her discomfort, tries to downplay it by explaining that it was his first time photographing a person, which makes Youngju smile. The moment is sweet, and there's a subtle shift between them. Youngju leaves soon after, but as they say their goodbyes, Minju reaches out for a high five. But instead of the playful gesture he was expecting, he grabs her hand, thanking her sincerely for all she's done. Youngju, a bit nervous, smiles and leaves, but the warmth of their touch remains. Back in Busan, Minju visits his father's house, only to be greeted by his stepmother, who mentions that a guest is arriving, a person who saved Minju's life 6 years ago. Minju is anxious to meet this person and properly thank them. When his father arrives with the guest, Minju is shocked to find that the person is none other than Youngju. The realization hits Minju hard. The woman he's been working so closely with, the one who has captured his heart, was the very same person who saved his life all those years ago. This revelation leaves him reeling, unsure of what to do next. But later he was overjoyed to discover that Youngju was the one who had saved his life 6 years ago. However, his excitement wasn't matched by hers. Youngju kept her distance, her expression a mix of unease and sadness. During dinner with Minju's family, she remained polite but reserved, and left before Minju could ask her about the emotions she seemed to be hiding. Back at home, Youngju found herself lost in memories. She recalled the day she saved Minju from the car. After breaking the window and rushing him to the hospital, she had missed a call from her grandmother. When she finally returned home, she found her grandmother collapsed. Though the surgery that followed saved her grandmother's life, the delay had left lasting effects, causing Youngju to carry a heavy burden of guilt. Meanwhile, Bangarium decided to celebrate her birthday with her parents at a fancy restaurant. But her hopes of a warm family moment were dashed as her mother criticized her, and her father was glued to his phone. Their lack of attention reminded her of the lonely birthdays of her childhood, despite being surrounded by wealth. At the next table, she noticed Chan Hy celebrating his brother's birthday in a lively and loving atmosphere. When Ariam's parents left early, she sat alone, feeling out of place. Chan Hy, noticing her, introduced her to his siblings and later surprised her with a makeshift birthday cake made of cookies. Ariam, who had never experienced such thoughtfulness, was deeply moved by the gesture and began to see Chan Hy in a new light. Elsewhere, Minju couldn't stop thinking about Yongju's guarded demeanor. He had started to share stories about her with the villagers, who found his excitement amusing but also overwhelming. When Yongju returned to the village with her team, the villagers teased her about Minju's endless chatter. Although she laughed it off, her unease lingered. The weight of her past decisions was difficult to ignore. During a break in their work, Yongju and Chan Hy shared stories of their time in the special forces. Their camaraderie was evident, and it caught the attention of Ariam, who joined Chan Hy on a motorcycle ride to fetch coffee. For a moment, Ariam felt a sense of freedom and joy, something she rarely experienced. As the day went on, Minju found an opportunity to ask Yongju why she was avoiding him. She hesitated but promised to share her feelings when she was ready. That evening, an emergency arose when Shim Ra-oh's father collapsed. Minju and Yongju accompanied Ra-oh to the hospital, offering support. Yongju guided Ra-oh through the steps of caring for his father, drawing from her own experiences with her grandmother. Minju paid for the surgery, brushing off Ra-oh's gratitude by saying he was merely passing on the kindness he had once received. After dropping Ra-oh at the hospital, Minju took Yongju home, where her grandmother invited him in for dinner. The grandmother, observing their interaction, felt reassured that Yongju wasn't alone. When Yongju fell asleep on the couch, Minju gently tucked her in and confessed to the grandmother that he liked her granddaughter. The grandmother shared stories of Yongju's sacrifices, revealing how she had given up her dreams to support their household. The next morning, Yongju woke up to find a note from Minju apologizing for everything. Realizing he now knew the truth, she decided to face her feelings rather than regret the past. She told her grandmother that she didn't regret saving a life, even if it had come at a cost. Her grandmother, proud of her resilience, agreed. Later, Yongju heard about an emergency in the mountains and feared that Minju was in danger. Rushing to the site, she was relieved to find him safe, sitting by a hut deep in thought. She scolded him for disappearing without telling anyone, but Minju explained that he needed time to figure out how to be with her despite everything. For the first time, Yongju admitted how much she was struggling. Minju, seeing her vulnerability, promised never to leave her. Overcome with emotion, Yongju hugged him tightly. In that moment, Minju leaned in and kissed her, his feelings finally spilling over. After a pause, Yongju kissed him back, letting go of her walls and meeting his emotions with her own. After the kiss, Yongju felt unsure of her feelings. Things were moving too quickly, and she needed some time to think. Minju, sensing her hesitation, agreed to give her the space she needed. As they walked down the mountain, they passed a group of people eating fried chicken. Yongju, feeling nervous about being noticed, tried to cover her discomfort by eating some chicken. Minju, still wanting to share their progress, respected her wish to wait, his love for her shining through in his gentle actions. He draped his jacket over her shoulders and moved the mosquito coil closer to her, showing care in small but meaningful ways. The next morning, Minju woke up with a start, only to relax when he saw that the arm across his chest was not his own. It was Chan Hy, who had stayed with him after they both got drunk the night before. Minju's mind wandered to Bang Ariam, who had received another message from the matchmaking agency. He felt uneasy, wondering if he should intervene and stop her from continuing with this matchmaking pursuit. On the other hand, Chan Hy, feeling a sense of protectiveness for Ariam, decided to secretly observe her blind date. As he watched, he grew uninterested, unable to connect with the man she was supposed to date. Just as he noticed Ariam leaving, the man became upset and tried to stop her. Chan Hy intervened, calming the situation, and the two of them ended up going to the beach. There, Ariam took the bold step of asking Chan Hy if they should date. Surprised but happy, Chan Hy kissed her, and they excitedly announced their new relationship. The next day, during the team's beer tasting session, everyone was taken by surprise when Ariam and Chan Hy revealed they were now dating. Though the group jokingly questioned whether Ariam had been forced into it, she proudly admitted that it was her decision. Minju, who had been observing the two, wasn't surprised at all, as he had already picked up on Ariam's feelings for Chan Hy. As they continued discussing the beer samples, it became clear that while the second batch was good, it still lacked something extraordinary. Yongju realized that they needed a new, fresh angle to stand out. Meanwhile, the marketing manager from Supreme Beer boasted about their upcoming product, claiming it would overshadow the competition. This only fueled the fire in the planning team, who were now more determined than ever to prove themselves. Yongju came up with an idea to create multiple beer variations with different alcohol contents and flavors, allowing customers to choose based on their preferences. She wanted to respect people's individual tastes and offer them a more personalized experience. Everyone quickly got on board with the plan, eager to work together and take their beer to the next level. Just as things were picking up, the marketing head from Bakemock Beer, arrived at the brewery. She had heard that Minju was working with Supreme Beer and was disappointed to learn that a partnership was no longer possible. However, Ji wasn't here to seek a partnership, she was there to reminisce about the past. As she spoke with Minju, recalling how popular he had been in high school, Youngju's jealousy became evident. She couldn't help but feel uneasy as Ji shared memories of Minju bringing her coffee during ballet practice. Youngju tried to keep her emotions in check, but it was clear she was affected by Ji's presence. Watching from a distance, she felt a mix of jealousy and anger. Minju, sensing her discomfort, teased her about the jealousy she was trying to hide. Youngju, still in denial about her feelings, was flustered by his teasing and nearly tripped, but Minju caught her just in time. The moment was charged with emotion, and Minju took the opportunity to ask Youngju out on a date. Surprised, Youngju shyly agreed, and they spent the evening together. Minju, noticing the pictures of flowers on the walls of her house, realized how much she loved flowers. He also saw that she had hidden these preferences, perhaps due to life's hardships. Minju promised to help her rediscover the things she loved, hoping to make up for the years she had put aside her happiness. However, their happiness was short-lived. When Youngju returned home that evening, she found her grandmother's cane lying on the ground, and her grandmother was nowhere to be found. After a frantic call, she learned that her grandmother had passed away. In the midst of the shock and grief, Youngju remembered the signs that had pointed to this moment. Her grandmother had known her time was near and had asked for memories to be recorded. At the funeral, Youngju greeted the guests with a smile, even though her heart was breaking. Her estranged father appeared, apologizing for his absence over the years. But Youngju, though hurt, responded with grace, showing him that she had built a good life with her grandmother. Afterward, she went outside, determined not to cry. But Minju followed her, and they shared a tender, heartfelt embrace. For the first time, Youngju allowed herself to feel the pain. Minju, shedding tears for her, offered the comfort she had long denied herself. In that moment, they shared a grief that connected them even deeper than before, marking a new chapter in their relationship. Youngju spent the next few days feeling the weight of her grandmother's loss. Her house felt emptier than ever, but Minju didn't let her face it alone. One day, he showed up and convinced her to leave the house for a while. Together, they went to the village, where the Baegok-ri residents had organized a fun event to cheer her up. The villagers started with a hoop rolling race. Youngju, determined as ever, beat the village head without breaking a sweat. Next, she competed in a brick-breaking contest, where she impressed everyone by smashing her brick effortlessly. The villagers laughed and cheered, and for the first time in days, Youngju smiled. Her laughter was contagious, but it was clear to everyone that behind her smile, her grief lingered. After dinner, the two elderly women encouraged Youngju to let herself cry, reminding her that it was okay to feel weak sometimes. Minju gently asked if she wanted a hug. Embarrassed, Youngju ran off, leaving the villagers chuckling at her reaction. The aunts teased Minju about his lack of experience in matters of the heart, saying he might have to wait forever for Youngju to understand her feelings. Meanwhile, Bangariam was dealing with her own struggles. After Chanhui dropped her off at home, she opened up about how lonely she felt living in such a big house. She imagined a future where they were together, picking out furniture and sharing breakfast. But when she asked Chanhui about his thoughts on the future, his hesitant response left her feeling disappointed. To make matters worse, Ariam's mother arrived and criticized Chan Hy's food truck, saying it didn't belong in their affluent neighborhood. Her harsh words hurt his pride, but he kept quiet. Ariam, upset by her mother's reaction, later stormed out of the house to find Chan Hy waiting for her. She confessed her frustrations, saying he deserved a family full of love, something her own family lacked. Back at the brewery, another drama unfolded. A scandalous video about Jae-won and her husband Soon-gwan circulated online, claiming their marriage was a sham. Minju stepped in to stop the YouTuber exploiting their story. He recalled how 3 years ago, Soon-gwan had saved Jae-won from an abusive relationship, and their love had blossomed from there. Minju defended them, saying their bond was genuine and filled with love. Soon-gwan's heartfelt confession about his love for Jae-won moved everyone. Watching the couple's love story reminded Youngju of her feelings for Minju. Later that evening, she confessed her love to him, and to her relief, he felt the same. Their relationship, now stronger than ever, gave Youngju a renewed sense of purpose. With a fresh mindset, Youngju dove back into work with her team. Together, they finalized 3 beer samples and named the collection together, symbolizing unity and choice. Meanwhile, Youngju planned a date with Minju to celebrate their growing connection. She chose paintball, but her competitive nature took over, and she wiped out all her opponents within seconds, leaving Minju laughing and teasing her about her romantic choice. Afterwards, Minju insisted on going to her house, where he made a heartfelt gesture. He redecorated her room, bringing out her hidden passions. He placed music records, her old music books, and photographs around the room, creating a space that reflected the vibrant person she once was. Over dinner, he gifted her a set of mugs and encouraged her to find joy in the little things. He suggested they make a list of 10 things she loved to rediscover her happiness. With the beers ready for final evaluation, the team headed to Jisong's headquarters to present their work. The initial feedback was promising, with executives praising the beer. However, when the formal evaluation results came in, Yongju and her team were shocked. Despite the positive reactions, the scores were alarmingly low, leaving them confused and questioning what had gone wrong. The team at Jisang worked tirelessly to perfect their beer, but their efforts seemed to hit a wall. The planning manager Yeom Jang-gun sabotaged their progress by convincing his subordinates to give the beer low scores during the internal assessment. He argued that launching 3 different types of beer was a wasteful strategy, stirring doubts among the team. Despite this setback, Yongju refused to give up. She suggested entering the beer into an international blind tasting competition, knowing this could be their best chance to prove its worth. Minju supported her wholeheartedly, proposing that if they won, their team would handle all pre-launch responsibilities. The chairman agreed, motivated by the opportunity to boost the company's reputation. The mood among the team lightened as they prepared for the competition. Minju reassured the group that their hard work wasn't in vain. Sensing the tension between Chan Hwai and Bang Ariam, he encouraged them to resolve their differences. Inspired, Chan Hwai invited Bang Ariam for a picnic by the river, but their conversation quickly turned serious. Bang Ariam pressed him to explain why he didn't want to marry her, but he struggled to open up. Later, Chan Hai sought clarity through swimming, only to be overwhelmed by memories of his time in the Special Forces. He recalled a traumatic mission where he had to kill someone to save hostages. The incident left him haunted, unable to eat or breathe properly. When Minju found him, Chan Hwai finally confided in him, admitting he felt unworthy of Bang Ariam's love. Meanwhile, Yongju surprised Minju with a visit to his home. Over a comforting meal, she reminded him that the past didn't define their future. They focused on building something beautiful together. Minju, touched by her words, promised to always be there for her. In a heartfelt gesture, Chan Hwai finally opened up to Bang Ariam. He took her to a gun range and showed her the source of his trauma. He explained how the act of taking a life during his military service had changed him, leaving him with debilitating panic attacks. Despite his fears, Bang Ariam embraced him, vowing to stand by him no matter what. Later, Yongju organized a small party with the villagers and Minju's family. The celebration was filled with warmth and laughter, but it also became a turning point for Minju and his father. They shared beers and opened up about their strained relationship. Minju's father revealed that he had worn his military uniform to his wife's funeral to avoid breaking down. This heartfelt confession brought father and son closer, bridging years of misunderstanding. The day of the International Blind Beer Tasting Competition finally arrived. The team anxiously awaited the results, only to discover that Yeom Jang-gun had tried to sabotage them again by swapping out their beer. However, Minju's sharp instincts foiled the plan, ensuring their beer reached the competition on time. When the winners were announced, their beer together won first place, solidifying its place in the market. The victory called for a celebration, but Minju noticed something troubling in the initial batch of beer. The beer tasted different than expected. He quickly told Yongju that they couldn't send it out. Yongju was concerned about the loss of money and reputation, as the batch had already been prepared for sale. She was worried about keeping promises to the wholesalers. Minju explained that the taste change was too risky. He didn't want their brand to suffer, even if it meant losing money. Yongju disagreed, arguing that the financial loss was too huge to ignore. She tried to talk to her boss, but he refused to delay the launch. The situation was getting tense. Minju felt the weight of the decision on his shoulders, while Yongju felt torn between sticking to her promises and supporting Minju. After the argument, Yongju felt frustrated and sent Minju an apology message. However, when she left work, she found Minju waiting outside for her. They went for dinner, but the atmosphere was heavy. Neither of them could relax, and both felt emotionally exhausted. After dinner, they went their separate ways. Later, Yongju vented her frustrations to her friend Rum over drinks. She complained about how Minju always seemed to keep his feelings hidden, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Minju, on the other hand, was struggling with the same problem. He could sense Yongju's pain, but he couldn't talk to her about his own. A week passed, and they still hadn't reconciled. Yongju was avoiding Minju because it felt easier that way. But at home, Sukja and Youngjia came to check on her. They told her that Minju had been working himself too hard and had even passed out from exhaustion. This news made Yongju worried, and she rushed to see him. When she arrived, Minju was surprised to see her. He was still focused on work, but he immediately asked how she was doing. Yongju told him she couldn't understand his emotions unless he opened up. Minju admitted that it was difficult for him to express himself because he didn't want to make her sad. He didn't want her to feel the pain he was going through, especially since he could sense others' emotions so strongly. Yongju suggested that they take a break to sort out their feelings. She didn't want them to break up, but she knew they needed some time to figure things out. Minju reluctantly agreed. They decided to take a temporary truce and focus on their work for the time being, with plans to come back to each other once they had dealt with their emotions. The next day, things felt awkward between them. They both acted strangely around their friends and colleagues. Yongju tried to meditate to clear her mind, but her friends, Aram and Chan, were confused by her behavior. Minju, too, was behaving oddly. He went for a swim, trying to find some peace. His friends, Sukja, Jaja, and Yonga, noticed how off he seemed, but none of them knew how to help. Meanwhile, Aram and Chan were dealing with their own challenges. They arranged a brunch with Aram's parents, where Chan tried to impress her father by cooking, but her mother was harder to please. Aram was determined to marry Chan, even if her parents didn't approve, but Chan promised that he would make sure she walked down the aisle with her father one day. In the middle of all this, Yongju received terrible news. Articles began circulating online criticizing the taste of Together beer. The beer's reputation was at risk, and the company's manager was furious. Yongju quickly apologized, but she realized that there was more to the situation than just a taste issue. She suspected foul play. Minju, Aram, and Chan started to investigate the source of the rumors. They discovered that the negative articles had been planted by someone inside the company, none other than Yeom Jang-gun, the planning director. Minju and his team worked together to gather proof of Yeom's involvement. Aram used her tech skills to hack into Yeom's office computer and found the fake article. She printed it out and showed it to everyone in a meeting. The revelation shocked everyone, and the company's manager demanded that Yeom resign. Minju, knowing how hard Yeom had worked over the years, tried to speak to him privately. He understood Yeom's pain and offered him some advice, but Yeom was too proud to listen. In a flashback, Yeom reflected on his years at the company. Despite all his hard work, he had never built strong relationships with his coworkers. He realized that he had been too focused on climbing the corporate ladder and had neglected the people around him. Feeling alone and betrayed, Yeom packed up his office and left the company. Back at the brewery, Yongju was determined not to let anyone interfere with the production of Together beer again. The next day, Yongju and Chanhai headed to the office to confront the people responsible for posting hurtful comments about the beer, damaging the reputation of Jisang Beverages. Minju, at home, was worried about Yongju's safety, anxious about what might happen during the confrontation. After a tense moment, Yongju returned home safely, having successfully handled the troublemakers. Later, Yongju gathered her team to discuss ways to repair the damage to the beer's reputation. She suggested a public apology, lowering the beer's price, and expanding its availability by distributing it to various restaurants, cafes, and retail stores. Her plan was quickly put into action. Yongju even arranged an important meeting with the chairman of the Wholesalers Association and several other company heads. Together, she and Minju earned their trust and secured bulk orders for the beer, ensuring its future success. To celebrate this victory, the team went out for dinner. During the meal, Byum asked Yongju about the future of the Busan branch. She reassured him that the branch wouldn't be shut down, which eased his worries since he was hoping to return to Busan. However, her response created an awkward moment. She was hesitant to share her own plans, not wanting to upset her team members. Needing some air, Yongju stepped outside. Minju joined her and asked her how she was feeling. She confided in him that she wasn't sure about her next step in life. Minju encouraged her with kind words and offered support, reassuring her that whatever decision she made, he would be by her side. The next day, Mr. Nam, head of the Busan branch, visited the headquarters and confirmed that the branch would remain open. Yongju then asked Teo to reassign Byum to Busan, prompting Tijo to wonder aloud if Yongju was planning to leave as well. Before she could respond, Teo expressed his reluctance to let go of her talent. He praised her work ethic and advised her to follow her own path, reassuring her that she no longer had to carry so much responsibility. Byum overheard their conversation and unexpectedly joined them. He admitted that he had been holding on to feelings for Yongju, acknowledging that Minju was the right person for her. Byum expressed his intention to move on and return to Busan without any expectations from her. This conversation helped clear the air and allowed everyone to move forward. Later, Yongju shared this conversation with Minju. She told him that she was considering exploring a new path with him. Minju wholeheartedly supported her decision and promised they would face whatever challenges came their way, together. With this newfound clarity, Yongju began drafting her resignation letter, though she still felt uncertain about her decision. Sensing her inner turmoil, Aram offered her support. She called Yongju beautiful, a term that Chan Hy often used to compliment her. Touched by Aram's kindness, Yongju returned the compliment, strengthening their bond and friendship. After submitting her resignation letter, Yongju's teammates were saddened, but she reassured them that she would always be their friend. Yongju then rushed to Minju's house, where she broke down in his arms. Overcome with emotion, she reflected on her younger years spent at Baekmok Liquor, making countless sacrifices. Tearfully, she confessed that it was all over, marking the end of one chapter of her life. Days passed, and Minju was seen teaching specialized beer-making classes to a select group of candidates. Meanwhile, his father underwent a significant transformation. He became more open and empathetic, a shift from his previous rigid ways. In a poignant moment, Minju's father called him while wearing a pink apron and asked him to visit. He expressed how much he missed Minju and Yongju. He even prepared pasta for Minju and his wife, marking his departure from his former patriarchal ways. Meanwhile, Chan Hy took Aram to his house, where they discovered that his parents hadn't changed the lock code. With no one else home, he cooked for Aram, and they enjoyed some quality time together. To his surprise, Aram presented him with a ring and asked him to place it on her finger. Chan Hy agreed, kissed her hand, and promised a future together. He also revealed his true name, Oh Chan Ran, explaining that he had changed it to escape his past. The two shared a moment of mutual understanding and happiness. Back in the village, Suja and Youngja hosted a retirement party. After the celebration, the village chief and Mr. Kim engaged in a playful rivalry as they both planned to run for the 18th village chief election. To their surprise, Mr. Kim's wife announced her candidacy, highlighting her youth and fluency in English as her key advantages. This unexpected announcement added a humorous twist to the village politics. A few days later, Yongju opened her own music store cafe in Baikol-ri. The space was designed to sell premium beers from various breweries, play records, and provide a relaxing environment for people to unwind. Minju was her first customer, congratulating her on the new venture and mentioning how proud her grandmother would be of her. Shortly after, Byum and Ra arrived. Byum shared that he had become the head of the Busan branch, following Yongju's leadership style. Ra jokingly mentioned dealing with a junior who reminded him of his younger, more troublesome self. Chan Hajhuai and Aram joined the group, bringing a box of wedding invitations and asking everyone to help pack them. As they chatted and reminisced, Minju suggested they take a group photo to capture the moment.